What happens when one of the most powerful women in the Black church calls out? America's highest-ranking Black Catholic cardinal. Not behind closed doors, but in front of everyone. Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie didn't hold back, accusing Cardinal Wilton Gregory of being too comfortable with the system, and the reaction: shock, applause, and outrage all at once. But why did she say it? Okay? And what does it really mean for the future of the Black church and Catholic leadership in America? This isn't just a story about two church leaders disagreeing. No, this is about something much deeper. The clash between comfort and conviction, between tradition and transformation. On one side, you have Cardinal Wilton Gregory, the first African-American cardinal in U.S. history, a man who has climbed the ranks of the Catholic Church with dignity, diplomacy, and quiet strength. On the other side, you have Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie, the first female bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, known for her fearless leadership, her unshakable courage, and her bold willingness to speak truth to power. When Bishop McKenzie boldly declared that Cardinal Gregory was becoming too comfortable with the system, it wasn't just a jab, it was a challenge that questioned whether Black leaders in America's most powerful religious institutions have become more invested in maintaining their positions than in shaking the very foundations of inequality and injustice. In today's video, we're going to break this down piece by piece. We'll explore the exact moment Bishop McKenzie delivered this bombshell, why it struck such a nerve, and how both supporters and critics have responded. We'll dive into the long history of Black faith leadership, the struggles of balancing tradition with reform, and the wider implications this clash could have in the future of faith in America. Trust me, you don't want to miss this, because the real story isn't just about what was said, it's about what it reveals. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this moment could mark a turning point for Black religious leadership in the 21st century. Before we can even begin to understand why Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie's words hit so hard, we need to take a moment to appreciate who she is and why her voice matters so much. Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie isn't just another name in the long list of religious leaders. She is history in motion. Back in the year 2000, she broke barriers by becoming the first woman ever elected as a bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, an institution with over 200 years of history. Think about that. 2 centuries of tradition, male leadership, and resistance to change. And then here comes McKenzie, unapologetically claiming her space and proving that leadership knows no gender. But it's not just about the title she holds. It's about how she uses her platform. Bishop McKenzie is known across the nation and even internationally for her bold preaching style, her ability to connect scripture with the struggles of modern life, and her refusal to remain silent on issues of justice, equality, and systemic oppression. She's been recognized as one of the most influential Black religious leaders in America, often appearing on national stages, in leadership summits, and even advising political leaders. Her impact goes beyond the pulpit. She has authored several books where she challenges readers to embrace courage, confront injustice, and live with bold faith. She's been a strong advocate for women in leadership, particularly in spaces where tradition has often been used as an excuse to keep women sidelined. And she's not afraid to confront uncomfortable truths, even if that means calling out people at the very top of the hierarchy. So when someone like Bishop McKenzie speaks, people listen. Her words aren't just commentary. They carry the weight of history, the credibility of experience, and the boldness of someone who has fought battles that many others have avoided. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Bishop McKenzie and Cardinal Wilton Gregory represent 2 very different traditions of Black faith leadership. One comes from the African Methodist Episcopal Church, a denomination birthed out of protest against racism in white-dominated churches. The other comes from within the Catholic Church, an institution steeped in hierarchy, tradition, and centuries-old systems. Both leaders carry the responsibility of representing Black voices within powerful religious spaces, but they've chosen very different paths in how they do it. And that's exactly why her critique of Cardinal Gregory stings so much. It's not just one leader disagreeing with another. It's a powerful reminder that the fight for justice inside the church is far from over. But here's the shocking part. McKenzie's criticism wasn't whispered in private meetings or hidden in careful language. No, she delivered it openly, clearly, and unapologetically. Which leads us to the moment that set the internet buzzing, the headlines turning, and church folks debating what exactly did she say and how did Cardinal Gregory respond. Now that we understand Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie's influence and her bold reputation, let's break down the actual confrontation that has everyone talking. It all started at a national interfaith leadership gathering, a space designed to highlight unity among leaders from different denominations. The event was full of dignitaries, clergy, scholars, and journalists. It was supposed to be a celebration of shared values, but instead it turned into the perfect stage for one of the boldest statements Bishop McKenzie has made in recent years. When she took the microphone, she didn't come with a scripted, watered-down message. She came prepared to rattle cages. And here's the line that stopped the room cold. Too many of our leaders have gotten comfortable with the system, cozying up to structures of power while our people are still crying out for justice. Some of us have forgotten that we were called to disrupt, not to decorate. Cardinal Gregory, I'm talking to you. You're too comfortable with the system. The audience gasped. Some applauded instantly. Others sat frozen, unsure if they had just witnessed a prophetic truth or a divisive rebuke. Why did it sting so much? Because Bishop McKenzie wasn't just making a generic point. She called out Cardinal Wilton Gregory by name. That's right, the same Cardinal Gregory who in 2019 became the first Afrasian cardinal in the Catholic Church's history, a milestone that had been celebrated across the globe. For many, Gregory's elevation was supposed to represent progress, inclusion, and hope. But for Bishop McKenzie, it wasn't enough. She argued that while Cardinal Gregory made history, he hadn't used his position to challenge systemic injustices with the fire and urgency that the times demand. To her, he had become too aligned with institutional comfort, too careful not to upset the powerful, too willing to fit into a thievery system that once excluded people like him. Now, let's pause for a second. This is not the kind of statement clergy usually make about one another, especially not in public, and especially not when dealing with someone as high-ranking as a cardinal. In most cases, disagreements between church leaders are handled behind closed doors with carefully worded statements or subtle hints. But Bishop McKenzie, she skipped the politics. She skipped the diplomacy. She went straight for the jugular. And how did Cardinal Gregory respond? Well, that's where things get interesting. Instead of firing back with sharp words, Gregory kept his composure. Witnesses recall that he gave a polite but tight smile, adjusted his posture, and later responded in a calm, measured tone. He said something along the lines of, "The role of leadership requires both courage and wisdom. Sometimes what may look like comfort is actually strategy. Not every fight is won by shouting the loudest." The room split in two. Some people nodded in agreement, interpreting Gregory's words as a reminder that leadership sometimes requires patience and diplomacy, but others weren't convinced. To them, it sounded like an excuse for inaction, a way to justify being too close to political elites and too far removed from the struggles of ordinary people. This moment became the spark of a much bigger debate. Should leaders like Gregory work within the system quietly, or should they challenge it loudly like McKenzie insists? And here's the kicker. While some saw McKenzie as too confrontational, others felt she had said what needed to be said, but that no one else had the courage to voice. But that wasn't the end of it. The tension between these two leaders only grew, as reactions poured in from church members, community activists, and even the media. And trust me, some of those reactions were brutally honest. So, what did the public have to say? Well, the response might shock you. When Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie's words hit the room, they didn't just echo in that moment. They rippled across communities, churches, and social media feeds for days afterward. What started as a fiery exchange between two prominent leaders quickly became a national conversation. Let's start with the church members themselves. In African American congregations, particularly those within the AMN Baptist traditions, many worshipers saw Bishop McKenzie as saying what they had long felt but rarely heard from the pulpit. At such a high-profile gathering, they flooded comment sections, Twitter threads, and church forums with praise. Words like finally, truffler, and prophetic voice kept showing up. To them, Bishop McKenzie was doing what leaders are called to do, speaking truth to power. Even if the power she was addressing was another leader of color,